Elon Musk's kids are just a bunch of spoiled brats riding on their father's coattails, the reporter sneered, his voice laced with sarcasm. His comment sent a ripple through the crowd gathered at the high-profile press event, and for a split second, the room fell into stunned silence. Elon, standing at the podium, narrowed his eyes. The normally composed billionaire tightened his grip on the microphone. The atmosphere in the room shifted. Reporters exchanged glances, sensing that something explosive was about to unfold. Elon took a deep breath, his voice eerily calm, but firm. "Excuse me, what did you just say?" The reporter smirked, unfazed. "You heard me, Mr. Musk. Your kids are just privileged trust fund babies. No real struggle, no real talent, just your name to live off." A murmur spread through the audience. Some reporters hastily scribbled notes, while others raised their cameras, eager to capture what was about to happen. Elon stepped forward, his piercing gaze locked onto the reporter. "Tell me, what do you actually know about my children?" The reporter shrugged. "I know they'll never have to work a day in their lives." Elon's jaw clenched. The air in the room thickened with tension. No one had ever seen him this furious in a public setting. What he did next would leave the entire world stunned. Elon's expression hardened. He scanned the room, letting the silence drag just long enough to make the reporter shift uncomfortably. Then, with a calm but cutting tone, he said, "You claim my children have never struggled, that they have no real talent. You don't know them. You don't know what they've worked for. But let's put your theory to the test." The reporter raised an eyebrow. "Oh? And how do you propose we do that?" A sly smile tugged at the corner of Elon's lips. "I'll make you an offer. Spend one day shadowing my eldest son. Work alongside him, see what he's built, the problems he's solving. And then, if you still believe he's nothing more than a privileged trust fund baby, I'll personally fund any charity of your choice." Gasps echoed throughout the room. The challenge was unexpected, and the tension between the two men was electrifying. The reporter hesitated, clearly caught off guard. He had expected Musk to brush off the insult or throw a witty remark, not turn it into a public dare. The reporter stammered, but Elon wasn't finished. "Or are you afraid you'll be proven wrong?" The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed as journalists whispered amongst themselves. The reporter's smugness faded, replaced by uncertainty. He had insulted Musk's family in front of the world, and now he had been thrown into the spotlight. A choice was before him. Take the challenge and risk being humiliated, or back down and lose all credibility. His decision would change everything. The reporter, David Calloway, clenched his jaw. He wasn't about to let Elon Musk put him on the spot like this and make him look like a coward. The entire press room was watching, waiting for his response. "Fine," David said, his voice firm but edged with hesitation. "I'll do it. I'll spend a day with your son. But if this turns out to be a carefully staged PR stunt, I won't hold back in my report." Elon smirked. "Good. Then let's make it interesting." He turned to his assistant. "Arrange for David to shadow Xander tomorrow. No cameras, no special treatment. Just him, working alongside my son in real conditions." David blinked. "Wait, Xander? The Xander Musk?" A few murmurs ran through the room. Xander Musk was not just any rich heir. He had built his own reputation as a tech prodigy, launching projects that were revolutionizing AI and automation. Unlike many billionaire kids who rode on their parents' coattails, Xander had earned respect in the tech industry on his own terms. David had been expecting some spoiled rich boy living off his father's legacy. Instead, he was now about to spend a full day with someone whose achievements had already silenced many critics. Elon leaned forward. "Still up for it?" David hesitated for a fraction of a second, then straightened his shoulders. "Absolutely." Elon nodded. Then let's see if you're as good at uncovering the truth as you claim to be. The stage was set. Tomorrow, David would enter Elon Musk's world, and he had no idea what was waiting for him. The next morning, David Calloway arrived at a bustling SpaceX facility, expecting to be met with a VIP welcome. Instead, he was directed to the main engineering floor, where workers in lab coats and high-tech gear moved swiftly, deeply engrossed in their tasks. David glanced around, adjusting his tie. This was not the polished boardroom environment he was used to. A young man in jeans and a SpaceX hoodie approached him, safety goggles perched on his forehead. David. David recognized him instantly, Elon Musk. He was taller than expected, with the same piercing blue eyes as his father, but there was an intensity in his expression that set him apart. Yeah, David replied, clearing his throat. I guess I'll be following you around today. Xander smiled. Good, but just so we're clear, you're working, not just watching. David frowned. Working? Yep. Xander handed him a pair of safety goggles. Hope you don't mind getting your hands dirty. Before David could respond, Xander led him through a maze of workstations. Engineers worked on complex algorithms, robotic arms assembled intricate machinery, and teams debated formulas scrawled on glass walls. First assignment, Xander said, stopping at a long work table. We're troubleshooting an AI calibration issue. It's causing delays in one of our robotic manufacturing lines. David stared blankly. I'm not exactly an engineer. Xander chuckled. I know, that's why you're observing first. But I guarantee by the end of today, you'll have a different perspective. David sighed. He had expected a spoiled, entitled, rich kid. Instead, he was being thrown into the trenches of innovation. As the day unfolded, David followed Xander through meetings, hands-on tests, and intense brainstorming sessions. Xander wasn't just giving orders, he was in the thick of it, challenging ideas, running tests, and even working on the floor with the technicians. David's preconceptions began to crumble. This wasn't a boy living off his father's name. This was a man shaping the future on his own terms. Hours passed, and David Calloway found himself immersed in the energy of SpaceX's innovation hub. The place was a living organism, constantly evolving, buzzing with ideas and relentless problem-solving. Xander wasn't just present, he was leading. He dove into equations, ran diagnostics, and even crawled under massive machinery to inspect wiring issues firsthand. His team treated him like one of their own, not as the billionaire's son, but as someone who had earned their respect. David watched in disbelief as Xander wiped sweat from his forehead and leaned over to discuss a mechanical adjustment with an engineer. "You're really hands-on, aren't you?" David muttered, unable to hide his surprise. Xander smirked. "What did you expect? That I sit in a penthouse all day spending Dad's money?" David hesitated. "If I'm being honest, yeah." Xander laughed. "A lot of people think that. But here's the truth. I work twice as hard because of who my father is. The bar is higher for me. I have to prove I'm more than just a last name." David felt a twinge of discomfort. He had been so quick to judge. He had mocked Xander publicly without ever knowing the reality. By lunchtime, his tailored suit was wrinkled, his polished shoes were scuffed, and he had oil stains on his expensive watch. He had expected a simple PR stunt, but this was turning into something entirely different. And then, an announcement echoed through the intercom. Elon Musk is on site. David felt his stomach tighten. This was it, the moment of reckoning. David barely had time to gather his thoughts before the doors to the SpaceX control center swung open. The room fell silent as Elon Musk stepped inside. His presence was commanding. There was no need for dramatic entrances or elaborate speeches. Dressed simply in a black t-shirt and jeans, he surveyed the room, his sharp eyes locking onto his son first. "Xander, how's the test run going?" Xander nodded. "Good, but the nozzle pressure is fluctuating more than expected. We're recalibrating the flow system now." Elon turned to the lead engineer, who quickly confirmed Xander's assessment. "We should have it stabilized within the hour." David, standing awkwardly near the console, couldn't believe what he was seeing. This wasn't a spoiled rich kid playing CEO for the day. Xander was respected, knowledgeable, and actively contributing. Elon's gaze finally shifted to David. "David Calloway," he said in a measured tone, "we need to talk." The entire room tensed. The confrontation David had been dreading was here. Elon didn't raise his voice, but his words carried the weight of 1,000 headlines. "You wrote an article mocking my son, questioning his intelligence, his work ethic, and even his place in this world. You did that without ever speaking to him, without ever stepping into his reality." David swallowed hard. I didn't realize—" "No, you didn't," Elon interrupted. "You assumed. And your assumptions fed into a narrative that people love to believe, that the children of successful people are nothing more than entitled brats." David had no response. He had been exposed, not with aggression, but with cold, hard truth. Elon continued. "Let me ask you something. Do you know how many hours Xander spends here?" David shook his head. 16 hours a day, sometimes more. He doesn't need to. He could be off partying, living off my money, but he doesn't, because he believes in this work." Xander stepped forward. "I never wanted a free pass. My dad taught me that respect is earned, not inherited." The weight of his words hit David like a truck. He had built an entire article around a lie, and now, standing here, he realized just how wrong he had been. I owe you both an apology," David said, his voice quieter now. Elon didn't nod, didn't accept it immediately. "Words are easy, Mr. Calloway. If you want to make this right, then show the world the truth." David knew what that meant. He had to write a new article. This time, the real story. David sat in the observation deck above the control center, watching as Xander worked alongside the engineers. The teenager wasn't just a figurehead, he was actively involved, making calculations, adjusting variables, and debating solutions with seasoned experts. For the first time in his career, David felt ashamed of a story he had written. He had spent years chasing controversy, twisting narratives to fit sensational headlines. But this was different. He opened his laptop, hesitating for just a moment before he began typing. The truth about Xander Musk, a story of hard work, not privilege. He detailed everything, how Xander wasn't just some spoiled rich kid, but a dedicated, intelligent young man who had worked hard to earn his place at SpaceX. He described how Elon Musk didn't hand his son anything, but rather pushed him to prove himself. David included his own mistake, admitting how he had been blinded by preconceived notions, how he had judged before knowing the full story. As he finished the last paragraph, he exhaled deeply. This was the best article he had ever written. The article went live the next morning, and the internet exploded. David Calloway admits he got it wrong about Xander Musk. Elon Musk's son isn't just a billionaire's kid, he's a genius in the making. Journalist exposes his own bias in shocking turn of events. Social media buzzed with discussions. Some people still clung to their skepticism, but the overwhelming response was one of admiration. Readers respected David's honesty, and more importantly, they saw Xander in a new light. Even Elon Musk retweeted the article, simply writing, "The truth always wins." David's inbox flooded with messages, some praising his integrity, others criticizing his past mistakes. But one email stood out. It was from Xander. "Hey, Mr. Calloway, I respect what you did. takes guts to admit when you're wrong. No hard feelings. Xander. David smiled. He had come to SpaceX expecting to expose a fraud. Instead, he had found a story that changed his own perspective. A few weeks later, David received a phone call. "Elon Musk wants to speak with you." David's heart raced. Was this a setup? A lawsuit? He hesitantly agreed. When Elon appeared on the video call, he didn't look angry. Instead, he looked amused. "You learned something, didn't you?" Elon asked. David nodded. "I did." Elon leaned back. "Good. Now use that lesson wisely." And with that, the call ended. David sat back in his chair, thinking about how a single story had changed his entire outlook. He had spent his career chasing controversy, but now he wanted to chase the truth.